So we are reading Power versus Force by David Hawkins. We are now on chapter 1, page number 41 of the book and 13 of the PDF. 13, which page number of the PDF, Shimla? Page 7 of the PDF.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Part 1, Tools. 1. Critical advances in knowledge. The evolution of this work, which began in 1965, was fostered by developments in numerous scientific fields, of which 3 were of special importance. Clinical research on the physiology of the nervous system and the holistic functioning of the human organism resulted in the development in the 1970s of the new science of Kinesiology. Meanwhile, in the technological arena, computers were being designed that were capable of millions of calculations in milliseconds, making possible the new tools of artificial intelligence. This abrupt access to formerly inconceivable masses of data begot a revolutionary perspective on natural phenomena, chaos theory. Simultaneously, in the theoretical sciences, quantum mechanics led to advanced theoretical physics. Through associated mathematics, there emerged a whole new study of nonlinear dynamics, one of
So the new science of kinesiology. Okay, what is kinesiology? That is muscle testing. That the body responds to certain stimulus by the muscles becoming stronger or weaker. That is what the science of kinesiology is. Then you had the chaos theory come up, where they said that everything underneath, it may look like chaos on the surface, but there is an organization which is there below the chaos. And then we had the theory of non-linear dynamics develop, where we normally think one thing comes after the other, but non-linear dynamics means everything is happening together. It is not happening one step at a time or one after the other. It is happening at the same time, right? So that is non-linear dynamics.
Simultaneously, in the theoretical sciences, quantum mechanics led to advanced theoretical physics. Through associated mathematics, there emerged a whole new study of nonlinear dynamics, one of the most far-reaching developments of modern science, the long-term impact of which has yet to be realized.
So again, theoretical science, what does that imply? It means that the scientist is doing the process in their head, right? It is not yet possible to do it physically. They do the full experiment in their head and they come out with a solution or they come out with a result, right? Now, Einstein was a theoretical scientist. He was being able to do the experiments within his head.
Kinesiology for the first time exposed the intimate connection between mind and body, revealing that the mind thinks with the body itself. Thence, it provided an avenue for the exploration of the ways consciousness reveals itself in the subtle mechanisms behind the disease process.
Shimangla, slow down a little bit, please. Okay, so now what does this imply over here? It's saying very clearly that there is an effect of the mind on the body and the body on the mind. They are affecting each other. And that is how kinesiology works, right? So if you're thinking of something, it can actually make the body weaker or stronger, depending on what you're thinking. That's why we are constantly saying in awareness also that, watch your thoughts. What are you thinking? Which side of the grid are you operating from? What is the state of consciousness you are operating from? Because your mind can affect the body and the body can affect the mind.
Advanced computers permitting the depiction through graphics of vast amounts of data disclosed unsuspected systems within what had been ignored by Newtonian physics as indecipherable or meaningless data, chaos. Theoreticians in diverse fields were suddenly able to intimate coherent ways of understanding data that had been considered incoherent or nonlinear, diffuse or chaotic, and therefore inaccessible through conventional probabilistic logical theory and mathematics.
So what was he saying? What is he saying over here? Because of the improved processing capacity and the ability to perceive what was happening because of computerization of stuff, they were able to find a pattern beneath the chaos which was being viewed when we were looking at it from the Newtonian physics side. Okay, so Newton had three laws, right? Every and each action has an equal and opposite reaction, etc., right? So using those laws, there was chaos. But when they got into advanced computing, they found that there is order underneath the chaos. So that was again the chaos theory.
Analysis of this incoherent data identified hidden energy patterns or attractors which had been postulated by the advanced mathematics of nonlinear equations behind apparently random natural phenomena.
So this is important. Okay. What it says, attractor, energy patterns or attractors. What does this imply? Everything around us is in resonance with everything else. There is a resonant frequency. Now, I was just going through a program in biogeometry, and there they are talking about something called stacking, right? So we normally think in linear time, that is past, present, and past, present, and future. But they are talking about stacking of time, where you can move from one point to another in a dynamic manner, right? Now, what happens there is this can be equated with the theory of karma also. That today, if I have done something in the past and it is affecting me in the present, that means whatever is happening to me right now is in resonance with what happened in the past. Now, when you say that, when you do that, then that implies that if I do something now, I can affect the past. So what he's saying over here, the attractor patterns, is that when I am vibrating at a certain frequency, I am creating a resonance effect in everything else which is vibrating or can vibrate at that particular frequency. And my vibration will act as an attractor field to attract that which is vibrating at the same frequency into my field. So attractor energy patterns. Now, when you look at it from our policy, that what we are saying is that whatever you're paying attention or whatever you're thinking is going to manifest in your life. Why? Because we also are creating attractor patterns all the time, and we attract that thing into our life. So we have to be very, very clear that we are the architects of our reality, because whatever is coming into our life, we are actually attracting it. Okay. We are creating these attractor patterns within our field.
Computer graphics clearly demonstrated the designs of these attractor fields, the implicit potential for analyzing supposedly unpredictable systems in such disparate areas as fluid mechanics, human biology, and stellar astronomy appear to be limitless. Though as yet, except for the appearance in the marketplace of some intriguing new computer graphic patterns generated by fractal geometry, the public has remained genuinely unaware of this new field of nonlinear dynamics.
Okay, so naturally, this is all in high level physics and all that. So we are still living our life normally, but actually this stuff is very real, right? It's not yet percolated down to the general public. So when we get into higher computer calculating and ability to create models, let us say, when you go into something which is totally gone case, it's out of order, the order starts to pop up, okay, in the models that are created. Yes, Renuji, you have to rename yourself.
Yeah. Bhaiya, I'm a little confused about this stacking thing. What you said whatever we are doing today, we
Yes,
are in resonance with something in the past. That means
correct.
whatever we are doing today can also be in resonance with something in the future.
Absolutely.
So that means even if we are resonating with something in the past, but if we were to just be aware of our action, we will be able to at least create a positive. Am I going in the right
Absolutely, 101%.
Okay. I've got it.
101%. If you are, whatever you're doing today is definitely creating an effect in the future, and it is affected by the past and is affecting the past also. So we are affected by the future, we are affected by the past, we are affecting the future, and we are affecting the past.
How are we affecting the past? That's the bit.
Because when you change something over here and you are in resonance with, see, something is happening in your life right now. The cause may be, okay, I'm just saying maybe, something which happened in the past. Okay. Now, when it happened in the past, you had a certain attitude about it.
Okay.
It occurred to you in a certain way. Now, when it is happening again today, if you change the way it occurs to you or the way that you are handling it and taking it, it will clear the past also.
Oh, okay, I've got it. As long as if you are upset with something in the past, but as long as now you look at it from a different point of view,
correct,
that will even clear your obvious. Okay,
naturally you're at now. Now, when you think of that event in the past, will the charge be the same?
No.
If you've rectified or changed the way that you're looking at it.
No, I've got it now.
In the present, we can affect the past. Are you? You get that?
Now I've got it. Yeah, I wasn't getting how you change the past.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
During the era preceding these revelations, linear science had grown progressively. Divorced from concern with the basis of life itself, all life processes are, in fact, non-linear. This isolation was also characteristic of medicine, which, when presented with the amazing discoveries of kinesiology, merely ignored the information because it had no context, no paradigm of reality with which to comprehend it. Medicine had forgotten that it was an art and that science was merely a tool of that art.
So when you don't, you see what happens with most people is that when they have no method of comprehending what is happening, they will reject it. Okay. So now what is happening with so-called alternate method medicine or alternate ways of treatment is that the normal, the allopathic people or the people who are dependent on science, they tend to ignore it. They say, no, this is not possible. So it is not relevant, right? Now, if you really ask them, most of them have not even tasted. They have not attempted to actually use the processes and they are rejecting it without using. Okay. Now that becomes a problem. So he's saying over here that medicine was an art, that today when the shamans were treating people, right, they were artistic. They used to figure out what will work for each individual and treat each individual separately, right? Depending on the physiology and psychology of that particular person. Ayurveda does the same thing. But when you look at allopathy, this parameter is like this means this medicine. This parameter is like this means this medicine, right? The art of giving the medication has got forgotten. So what he's saying that medicine was an art and science has forgotten that it was an art.
Within medicine, within medicine, psychiatry had always been held at a distance by traditionalists because, in dealing with the immeasurables of human life, it appeared less scientific from the Newtonian viewpoint. Academic psychiatry, in fact, has made major scientific breakthroughs in psychopharmacology since Tile's 1950s. However, it remains the most non-linear area of medicine, examining such subjects as intuition, decision-making, and the whole phenomenon of life as process. Although in the academic psychiatric literature there is little mention of such things as love, meaning, value, or will, the psychiatric discipline at least essays a somewhat larger view of man than other traditional medical fields.
So what he's saying clearly here is that when you're going to a psychiatrist, they're looking at more than what normal medicine looks at, right? Having said that, but still, it is it's still lower than what can actually be seen. And this is something that we are seeing, like with biofield tuning also. It is said that, Eileen was telling us in the workshop that today there have been many people who've come to her who have been going to psychiatrists for decades and not being able to solve their problem. And few biofield tuning sessions actually clear up the field and the problem disappears. So there are so many layers, there are so many factors involved in the whole process that, of course, you have to look at it from a much wider perspective than what normal medicine looks at it.
Regardless what branch of inquiry one starts from, philosophy, political theory, theology, all avenues of investigation eventually converge at a common meeting point: the quest for an organized understanding of the nature of pure consciousness. But all of the major enterprises in human knowledge discussed above, even kinesiology and nonlinear dynamics, halted at this last great barrier to human knowledge: the investigation of the nature of consciousness itself.
So what is the game ultimately that we are playing? We want to understand what consciousness is all about. Who is the one who's running things? How is it running? Why is it running? For what purpose is it running? Everything, right? So if we are seeing, who is making us see? What is that essence which is making us see? This is the basic quest of all thinkers, all philosophers, all religion at the end of the day. What is that one or that God or whoever which is running everything? We are all looking for that, right? And that is very, very elusive. It can be experienced, it cannot be investigated.
Some advanced thinkers, it is true, went beyond the parameters of their respective fields and began to ask questions about the relationship between the universe, science, and consciousness in its experience as mind. We will refer to their theories and their impact on the advance of human understanding as we proceed.
So again, what is the connection, right? What is the connection between the physical, which is the universe, the science, that the investigation of how things are running, and then of consciousness, which is actually running everything? What is the interrelationship? How does it connect? How does it integrate? Basically, this is the game that we are playing.
The thesis of the present work derives from amalgamating these several scientific disciplines into a methodology both elegantly simple and rewarding. We have found thereby that consciousness can indeed be investigated, although no roadmaps for such a study have thus far been available. Research into the subject has produced its own design, and with it, the context needed to comprehend its findings.
So what are we reading right now, right? A process by which we can create the mind body conscious awareness connection and get empirical data, right? Of course, the human person is involved, but having said that, universally some things make you weaker and something make you stronger. So that scale has actually developed.
Inasmuch as everything in the universe is connected with everything else, it is not surprising that one of the primary objectives of this study, a map of the energy fields of consciousness, would correlate with and be corroborated by all other avenues of investigation, uniting the diversity of human experience and its expressions in an all-encompassing paradigm. Such an insight can bypass the artificial dichotomy between subject and object, transcending the limited viewpoint that creates the illusion of duality. The subjective and objective are in fact one and the same. It can be demonstrated without resort to nonlinear equations or computer graphics.
So what is he saying over here, right? There is an objective thing and there is a subjective thing. Now, if you have an apple, that is an object, it's objective. But what is the subjective? What is the taste? What is the smell? What is the texture, right? Now, in this process, both the objective and subjective are combined and you get a clear-cut answer.
By identifying subjective and objective as the same, we are able to transcend the constraints of the concept of time, which by its very definition is a major hindrance to comprehension of the nature of life, especially in its expression as human experience. If in actuality the subjective and objective are one and the same, then we can find the answers to all questions by merely looking within man himself.
So this is important, right? Because when we are looking at higher states of consciousness, time and space cease to exist. So the objective and the subjective, they start to merge. If we can make a connection, a shortcut there, then we can just understand whatever a person is just by looking at the person. Now we've joined one program, he calls it the Samudraka science, right? And he says it's the method of face reading. So what is the character of a person by various shapes in the face and the way the neck is held and the way the eyes are shaped, the eyebrows are shaped, the mouth is shaped, the nose is shaped, the ears are shaped, the cheeks are shaped, the shape of the head, the way that the head moves, is it up, is going down. You can discern the nature and total character of the person. So what he's saying over here, you can find answers to questions by merely looking at the person. Okay, so again, everything is in the person. So by just looking at the person, we can garner a lot of information about the person.
By simply recording observations, we can see a grand picture emerge, one that predicates no limitation to the extent of further investigation.
So again, how do you create that? Now, if you look at the Samudrika science, they're saying that, okay, if the eyebrow is like that, this happens. So over a period of time, people started to discern that, okay, if this is there, then this should be there. They're creating a connection between the objective and the subjective. Once that connection is made, then you can actually go and investigate further. Like when we used to do aura reading and aura photography, using the picture and taking tens of thousands of pictures, we could discern that, okay, if this pink color comes here, that means it means this. If this symbol comes here, it means this. if this color goes like this, it means this, right? And over a period of time, over and over again, if the client agreed to what we were saying, we said that, okay, now if this happens, this will imply that this is happening with the particular client. So like that, a total process developed. And that is how, like when you do palm reading, when you do feet reading, people actually can look at the head and say stuff. People can look at the iris and say stuff. So again, all these are merging the objective with the subjective. So over here in this book, we are merging the body and the consciousness or the mind through the process of kinesiology, that is muscle testing.
All of us have available to us at all times a computer far more advanced than the most elaborate artificial intelligence machine, the human mind itself. The basic function of any measuring device is simply to give a signal indicating the detection by the instrument of slight change. In the experiments to be described, the reactions of the human body itself provides such a signal of change in conditions. As will be seen, the body can discern to the finest degree the difference between that which is supportive of life and that which is not.
So what does this imply? The body is one of the most sophisticated, the human body is one of the most sophisticated instruments going around. Today, consciously, we hardly know even 2% of what is happening in our body system, but the body is running and the body is constantly reacting to any kind of stimulus that it is subjected to and constantly attempting to come back into homeostasis. Homeostasis means coming into balance. This is something that Zia is constantly talking about in the somatic intelligence program, where she does it so beautifully that if the body is given a chance, it will automatically get into balance and create a state or create a scenario where it will start healing itself. Because the basic nature and the basic state that the body needs to exist in is in a balanced state, right? So the body is extremely, extremely sensitive. Unfortunately, we have all stopped listening to the body. Okay, we constantly do certain things. We are constantly doing things which are not going with the flow that the body wants to be in. Okay. Yes, Renuji.
Yeah. And before this, you talked about that by seeing the physical, the person can tell what kind of a person is. That, but a person is changing all the time. So depending on you feel all the looks and everything a person is born with, kind of thing. But does it change?
You are born.
If it becomes a person sort of goes into a particular bad company or something and goes bad, he'll change completely? Or if he goes into
there subtle changes start taking place as you are growing, as you are changing. See, if you took a photograph of your palm, right? If you took it 20 years back and you take it now, there will be a difference.
Okay.
Certain lines keep coming and going. I'll give you my own example. I think it was on the left side. I had a mole over here. Okay, in my nose. I think it was on the left side.
It's still there.
Okay, it's still there, but the size has reduced. You'll find on your body regularly certain moles appear or certain lesions appear and they'll disappear.
Oh, okay.
So changes are taking place, right? Now, even the moles which are there in the body, there's a science to discern that where the mole is coming, what it means. People have studied that also. What is the color of the mole? Where it is appearing? So all those things are indicators. So when an attractor field is created, it will automatically create certain changes which start taking place. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
We should not be surprised at this. Living things all react to what is life supportive and what is not. This is the fundamental mechanism of survival. Inherent in all life forms is the capacity to detect change and react correctively. Thus, trees become smaller at higher elevations as the oxygen in the atmosphere becomes scarcer. Human protoplasm is far more sensitive than that of a tree.
हाँ,
So,
हमको नींद लग गया.
so the point here is very clear, right? We are constantly balancing, again, homeostasis, right? We are constantly adapting to whatever is happening to us. And the body system constantly knows what is life giving and what is life taking. So it constantly is adjusting. All the time, the adjustments are taking place. And let me tell you, everything adjusts. Even Shobha Bhabi, you are getting unmuted all the time. Okay, so even animals, they adapt. You will find that let us say a squirrel will be of a particular color and shade. The fur will be of a particular color and shade if they are, let's say, in the mountains where there's a lot of greenery. The same squirrel, I'm just taking an example, in the desert, the color of the thing will be totally different, right? Now, as weather pattern changes, I was reading somewhere, I don't remember exactly where, but just if it was green pehle and slowly it started becoming a desert, the colors of the coats and the skin of the animals living there also underwent a change to adapt to the change. So we are constantly adapting. The bodies of everything are constantly adapting. And this is not only true for living, so-called living things, it's true for plants also.
The sparrows have also changed color because of the electricity and 4G coming in.
Correct.
We should not be surprised at this. Living things all react to what is life supportive and what is not. This is the fundamental mechanism of survival. Inherent in all life forms is the capacity to detect change and react correctively. Thus, trees become smaller at higher elevations as the oxygen in the atmosphere becomes scarcer. Human protoplasm is far more sensitive than that of a tree.
Shivangla, slow down.
Yeah. The methodology proceeding from the study of nonlinear dynamics, which we employed in this work of developing a map of the fields of human consciousness, is known as attractor research. It is concerned with the identification of power ranges of energy fields utilizing critical point analysis. Critical point analysis is a technique derived from the fact that in any highly complex system, there is a specific critical point at which the smallest input will result in the greatest change. The great gears of a windmill can be halted by lightly touching the right escape mechanism. It is possible to paralyze a giant locomotive if you know exactly where to put your finger.
Okay, so what does this mean? That we are looking at where the tipping point is. That from what is the point at which you go into the next level of consciousness. So over here, he's talking about the attractor research, but we know from our previous understanding that there's a level of consciousness that he talks about. So where is that critical point in which you go into the next level? Okay, so that is what we are looking at it over here.
Non-linear dynamics enables these significant patterns to be identified in complex presentations, even when they are obscured by incoherence or sheer mass of indecipherable data. It discovers the relevance in what the world discards as irrelevant, using an entirely different approach and totally different methods of problem resolution from the ones the world is used to.
So what happens when you don't understand something, you tend to discard it, that it is not relevant, right? So when you're looking at linear dynamics, they discard a lot of things that non-linear dynamics actually looks at. And when you look at that from the non-linear dynamic perspective, it starts to show up as an order which is below the chaos. So again, he's talking about the chaos theory.
The world conventionally assumes that the processing of problems requires starting from the known, the question or condition, and moving on to the unknown, the answer, in a time sequence following definite steps and logical progression. Nonlinear dynamics moves in the opposite direction, from the unknown, the non-deterministic data of the question, to the known, the answer. It operates within a different paradigm of causality. The problem is seen as one of definition and access rather than of logical sequence, as in solving a problem by differential equations.
So what is he saying over here, right? When we are looking at it from the normal conventional way, we will say that A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, right? But when you're looking at it from non-linear dynamics, everything is happening at the same time. And in non-linear dynamics, many times what happens is that you know the answer, you already know the result, but you do not know how it comes about. So this is what is talking about intuition also. When you get an intuitive insight, you just get that insight, and the more you build on your intuitive ability, the more accurate it starts becoming from you, because you're developing a faith in it, right? Now that is non-linear dynamics at play, because you do not know from where that answer came, but when you start analyzing it and figuring it out, you come that, okay, this is why this answer has come. So this happens a lot to us, when we are going into doing energy field rectification of various places, we'll suddenly be told, okay, do this. Now, we do not understand why we need to do it, but we do it. And as we do it, the entire picture starts to unfold as to why you needed to do this and what was the cause which was causing the mishap or the disorganization to take place, and it automatically starts to get organized. I've experienced this hundreds and thousands of times in so many places that we have actually visited. A simple sticker on a machine can start making the machine run properly. There is no explanation to it, but it actually happens. Okay, yes, Raghuji? You have to unmute.
Let me unmute.
Yeah, you
I can't.
unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just want, is possible Sri Mangala speak a little bit louder? It's very difficult to hear that.
Shimangla, start the other computer here.
Volume is, yeah.
Shimangla, start the other computer. Okay. She'll just start the other computer and then we'll shift. Okay, we'll pause it a little bit.
But before we attempt defining the questions of this study further, let us examine some of the material we have introduced in greater detail.
You're switching?
No, not yet. Attractors. Attractor is the name given to an identifiable pattern that emerges from a seemingly unmeaningful mass of data. There is a hidden coherence in all that appears incoherent. This inner coherence was first demonstrated in nature by Lorentz in studying computer graphics derived from weather patterns over long courses of time. The attractor pattern he identified is now quite famous as Lorenz's butterfly.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah, so what is he saying? The hidden coherence in all that appears incoherent, right? This was observed in traffic patterns also, that when they did slow photography of traffic, they found that the traffic moves in a pattern, right? Suddenly there'll be a lot of traffic, and then there'll be a lull. Then again there'll be a suddenly more traffic, and it forms a rhythm that is there. And what he's saying over here, of course, the diagram is not there, but he says that these attractor patterns are there in weather patterns also. How the weather moves is also in a pattern. So if you can see this over here, you see, can you all see this? So he's talking about this pattern over here, that it creates a butterfly pattern.
Different types of attractors are denoted by different names. For instance, strange attractors. But most important to our research is the discovery that some patterns are very powerful and others are much weaker. There is a critical point which differentiates the two distinct classes. This phenomenon is parallel and corollary to the high and low energy bonds in the mathematics of the chemical bond.
So again, naturally, some attractor patterns have more energy, and the probability of them manifesting something is higher than other attractor patterns. So also, like when two molecules are binding, whether they will stay bound or not is dependent on the strength of the contact. So in the same way, you have these patterns. So we have probabilities. So again, whenever we go into someone's house also, they will say that, okay, I want this to happen. Okay, now you can actually predict we can use the antenna, we can use the BG3 pendulum, I've been able to start using my mind. I have a counting system, and I will tell them, okay, the probability of this manifesting is X. Now, what I have seen that whenever the probability on a scale of 1 to 10 crosses 7, there's a very high chance of it manifesting. But there are certain other situations where the probability is much lower, let's say 1 or even lower than that. Then it's not that it cannot manifest, but the probability of it manifesting is very, very low. So you can actually start discerning using the process that we are talking in the book, that whether you should follow path A or you should follow path B, because you can start discerning probabilities using this particular system that we are going to be discussing.
Fields of dominance. A field of dominance is exhibited by high energy patterns in their influence over weaker ones. This may be likened to the coexistence of a small magnetic field within the much larger field of a giant electromagnet. The phenomenological universe is the expression of the interaction of endless attractor patterns of varying strengths. The unending complexities of life are the reflections of the endless reverberations of the augmentations and diminutions of these fields, compounded by their harmonics and other interactions.
Okay, now this needs some explanation. So basically what we come to, this is something that we talk in the Vastu workshop also, that everything is made out of molecules. This is something that we learn in physics, right? Now in class 7 and 8 in physics. Now molecules are made out of atoms. Atoms are made out of neutrons, electrons, and protons. Now the electron is circulating around the neutron and proton, and it has a charge. Now, anything that has a charge and has movement creates an electrostatic or magnetic field around itself, right? Now, this implies that the atom has a magnetic field. Now, since everything is made out of the atom, it implies that everything has a magnetic field. So when he says over here that the phenomenological universe is an expression of the interaction of the endless attractor patterns of various strengths, right? So now what happens is that when I bring two magnets together, when I bring north and north, what is going to happen? It's going to repel. When I bring north and south, it's going to attract, right? Now, when it is being repelled, I have to use extra force. I have to use energy to bring them together. The moment I release that energy, they're going to split up again, right? So there is the attractor force is working in the opposite direction. They're pushing each other apart. When I bring north and south, the attractor patterns are attracting, right? So the entire field becomes bigger. Now, let us say there's a very big magnet and I bring a small magnet near the big magnet. The big magnet's field is going to compress the small magnet's field, but it will not eliminate it. So if this is one field and this is the other one, this is the big magnet, let's say. So iska field is coming till here, let's say. You can actually feel it here with whatever equipment you have, right? Iska field is also coming till here. But when they come together north and north, this field will get compressed more than this field, right? So within the field, there are always fields and everything around us is constantly interacting and affecting everything else. Now, when we are looking at it from, again, biogeometrical principles, what we are attempting to do in biogeometry, which is also what energy fields and what we talk about in the Vastu program, is that we want to harmonize the field in our environment so that it becomes congenial for us to live in. Okay, that's the game of Vastu. That's the game of Feng Shui. They're doing nothing else, just making the environment better for you to live in. So the attractive fields which are created start working in harmony to you rather than disharmony to you. And these fields are there everywhere. Okay, so he says over here, the unending complexities of life are the reflection of the endless reverberations and the augmentations and the diminutions of these fields. So the expansion and contraction of these fields, everything around us is happening because of that. Bianca, you have a question. Can you please unmute and ask rather than put it in the chat? Of course, our relationships are definitely affected by these fields. We can actually go into an environment and just, oh, 1 second. Bianca,
Okay.
you start your video, then you'll come on the top. Yeah, you can unmute.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
tell
I
me.
can. Yeah. I wanted to know whether our relationships are affected by these patterns.
Absolutely. So we can actually go into a space and using the Lecker antenna, test at various frequencies, get to know whether they are flowing correctly or incorrectly, and discern the way that people are interacting in that environment just by looking at the fields. No interaction with the people at all. So we can actually go in and discern and tell you whether you're communicating well, whether there's pent-up emotions, whether people are happy or not, whether they are fighting or not, irritability levels in the environment, pent-up emotions, all sorts of things. We can just by reading the frequencies and the field, we can tell you. So the fields definitely affect you, whether you like it or not.
How can you
Now,
read these?
now, suppose you are the bigger magnet. Okay. So your environment can affect you, but you can also affect the environment. So when we say in awareness, when we are constantly saying, get into equanimity, become centered. Now, if you are centered, then it's more likely than not that you will start affecting everything around you and centering those things also. But if you are not centered, you will find everything around you will get uncentered. So the environment affects us and we affect the environment. It's a jugalbandi.
Inverse ratio.
You understand? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So when we are imbalanced, our surrounding becomes imbalanced. Our relationship
Absolutely.
becomes imbalanced. So it's all up to us.
Actually, so See, I'll tell you, you don't need Vastu, you don't need Feng Shui, you don't need all these things, provided you can maintain your center totally in balance all the time.
which is very difficult.
You understand? Today, if you are ill, right, what is happening? There is an imbalance, right? You've moved out of your central axis. You've moved out of your central system. Only then the imbalance is there. If you were centralized, then the imbalance wouldn't have come only. So again, when you look at immunity, right, the more resilient you are, the less chances of your falling sick.
Correct.
So you are centered, right? So that's why centering yourself becomes very, very important.
So those who go imbalance are the ones who get sick and
You'll find that the people who are more irritable, more uncentered, and if you look at the grid that we keep talking about, the chances of you falling sick are more if you're on the left side of the grid than on the right side of the grid.
Okay.
Okay, because when you're on the right side, you automatically become more resilient and centered. We'll see this as we go ahead. When we come to the scale of consciousness, you'll actually see it and we'll equate it with the grid. Yes, Renuji?
Bhaiya, is that the reason that there are some people you just don't connect to? When is
Absolutely.
it because of the field?
Yeah, because there's no resonance. There's no resonance with them.
Okay.
So how can you connect with them? If there's no resonance, there is no resonance. That's it.
No, like if you go into a group, there are some people you tend to get.
Correct.
Even in an unknown group, you tend to, and some you don't. So
Again,
that's also a form of.
Absolutely, it's the attractor field. No? If they are vibrating at your vibratory frequency or in the harmonics of your vibratory frequency, then you'll automatically get attracted to them.
Okay.
Critical point analysis. The traditional Newtonian concept of causality, see below, had excluded all such non-deterministic data because it did not fit into its paradigm. With the discoveries of Einstein, Heisenberg, Bell, Bohr, and other great innovators, our model of the universe expanded rapidly. Advanced theoretical physics demonstrated that everything in the universe is subtly dependent upon everything else.
So again, what are we coming to here? The butterfly effect. That if the butterfly flutters its wings in Brazil, it affects everything else. So the Newton was operating only at a physical level, right? But when you get into dynamics, energy field dynamics, which Einstein, Bohr, all these people, all these scientists, they started perceiving. And let me tell you, Einstein was a very spiritual person. All these inventors, they were going into altered states of consciousness and downloading data. That is how the equations and all came. If you talk to them, they would say, it came to me. I just saw it in my mind, right? Where did it come from? Who was making it appear, right? So that conscious awareness, that downloading of data caused an expansion. So it was again a jugalbandi where the data got downloaded, it expanded something. That expansion led to a further expansion. If you see our Rishi Munis, what were they doing? They downloaded data and they put it down in text. So when you start reading, a lot of the stuff that these guys also developed is actually there in our scriptures. It's already written there because they are connecting to the same attractor field. They are connecting to that same attractor pattern and downloading the data.
The classic Newtonian four-dimensional universe is often described as a giant clockwork with the three dimensions of space, manifesting linear processes in time. If we look at even simpler clockworks, we will notice that some gears move slowly and ponderously, while others move very rapidly, with tiny balances twirling about as escape mechanisms seesaw back and forth. To place pressure on one of the large moving gears would have no effect on the mechanism. However, somewhere there is a delicate balance mechanism at which the slightest touch stops the entire device. This is identified as the critical point, where the least force exerts the greatest effect.
So again, we need to find the point, the critical point where the shift will take place. So again, when we are doing energy field rectification in places, what we do is we attempt to find the critical point where if we do something on that critical point and we place something there or we do something there, it will change the entire field. It will go like boom. And let me tell you, when we do it, you can actually feel the whoosh, right? Suddenly the temperature of the whole place will change, or the breathing will suddenly open up, or you'll suddenly get, your hair will start to shine because the energy field suddenly goes up, right? So those are the critical points. So if you can figure out the critical point, you can sort out any issue. And inversely, you can create a huge problem by doing something ulta, okay, which is depleting on that critical point. So these critical points become very, very important. That is what critical theory is all about.
Causality. Within the observable world, causality has conventionally been presumed to work in the following manner: A to B to C. This is called a deterministic linear sequence, like billiard balls, sequentially striking each other. The implicit presumption is that A causes B causes C.
So this is the basic linear method of looking at stuff. That if this happens, then this will happen. If this happens, then this will happen. This is the normal Newtonian way of looking at things.
But our own research indicates that causality operates in a completely different manner. From this diagram, we see that cause ABC, which is unobservable, results in the sequence A is to B is to C, which is an observable phenomenon within the immeasurable three-dimensional world. The typical problems the world attempts to deal with exist on the observable level of A to B to C. But our work is to find the inherent attractor pattern, the ABC, out of which the A to B to C arises.
So normally what are we looking at? Because of the level of consciousness that we are operating at, we see A has caused B has caused C, right? But when we are going into expanded states, we find a different result totally. We find that the combination of A, B, and C, because when we are going into expanded states, then time and space cease to exist. Okay, so A, B, and C are working together to create a causality which we can observe in the normal world of A is equal to B is equal to C, which is something that is now you're seeing on the screen, where the attractor pattern is the combination of A, B, and C. The operator, that is their combination, creates an effect which results in A, resulting in B, resulting in C in our normal linear method of looking at things.
In this simple diagram, the operands transcend both the observable and the non-observable. We might picture them as a rainbow bridging the deterministic and the non-deterministic realms. The existence of operands can be inferred by asking the question, what encompasses both the possible and the impossible, the known and the unknown? That is, what is the matrix of all possibility?
So where does everything come out of? What is the probability of something manifesting. Because again, now you're looking at possibilities. What can manifest, right? And everything can manifest. Everything is a probability. That is where you understand that whether it will manifest, that means whether the attractor pattern created in A, B, and C together will result in A to B to C, right? That is the game that we are playing over here.
Let me know when to stop.
One paragraph.
This description of how the universe works is in accord with the theories of physicist David Bohm, who has described a holographic universe with an invisible implicate, enfolded, and a manifest explicit, unfolded order. But it is most important to note that this scientific insight corresponds with the view of reality experienced through history by enlightened sages who have evolved beyond consciousness to a state of pure awareness. Bohm postulates a source that is beyond both the explicit and implicit realms, very much like the state of pure awareness described by the sages.
Now, this is extremely important paragraph, right? He is saying that the ABC, Shivangla, keep it down. Okay, so now in the chart you see ABC is the attractor pattern, which is the unfolded or the implicate, right? And the A is to B is to C is the explicit. That is something that we can observe, right? But when you go into higher states of consciousness, you go beyond A, B, and C also. So you actually start observing what is the cause of the attractor pattern to get created. Now, if this is like the source code of a computer program, right? That before the source code, what was there? What was in the mind of the programmer? So the source code is like the ABC. And what you're seeing on the computer screen that we actually use at the front end is the A is equal to B is equal to C. But what is actually causing it all to work is something at a higher level, which are Rishi Munis and the sages were actually able to go into those expanded states and then download the data so they could see from a higher perspective, right? This is exactly what we are doing in the Monroe programs, going into expanded and higher states of consciousness so that our awareness, our perception, our ability to actually know what is happening starts to get expanded. Okay, I think we'll stop here. If anyone has anything to say or add, I know it's a little technical and complicated, but when we start really using the system, it becomes beautiful. It becomes really amazing. And this is something that we can apply in our lives totally. But it's important to understand where it is actually coming from.